Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Ryan from Game Essays. Thank you for joining me for another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at specifically Wind Waker dungeons and ranking them tier list style. You're going to notice at the bottom this also has some Twilight Princess dungeons, but I'm going to be doing a separate tier list for them, so stay tuned to that in the next coming days. But let's get right into it. I just recently played Wind Waker HD. It had been a long time since I played this game, but it's very fresh in my mind now, and I did want to just do a tier list. I know there's very few dungeons in Wind Waker, but I thought it would be fun to go ahead and do a tier list anyway. So let's just kick things off right away with Dragon Roost Cavern. So this is really like the first proper dungeon that you experience in the game. And I'm going to put it, honestly, at a B tier. I think it's pretty good for an intro dungeon, definitely a lot bigger than something like the Great Deku Tree. So it's actually a little bit more challenging. There's actually some kind of creative puzzles where even things like lighting a torch and having to throw it at a door to burn down the blockade there that's going on the door. So things that are a little bit outside of the box that you wouldn't typically see in an intro dungeon. I don't think it's anything amazing, but it's definitely a little bit better than you might expect. Next up, we have the Forbidden Woods, which I am also probably going to put at a B tier. I think it's pretty good for your second dungeon. It's, again, I think you use small keys, which is not typically something you always see early game for dungeons. So I thought it was pretty well done. For the most part, the Deku Leaf is utilized really well. The Boomerang is also used pretty good. So overall, not bad, not anything out of this world, but I think it's pretty good. Next up, we have Tower of the Gods. So Tower of the Gods, I'm actually going to put as I'm kind of between C and D tier. I don't think it's too horrible to be a D. I'm probably going to leave it at C tier. Now, I used to think this dungeon was a lot better than it actually is. I think the first part of the dungeon with the rising and falling water, the water is just way too slow and it can be really frustrating. I think the puzzle that frustrates most people is the room where you have to move these crates around so that you can basically create a path all the way across. And it's really annoying because it just takes so long for the water to rise and fall to kind of fix the mistakes you make. But at the same time, it seems slow in that respect, but then if you think about it, it feels like you only get one shot to try and make it across, and then the water falls again. So overall, that's just a really frustrating part. And then the upper section is okay. It's nothing amazing. The command melody is fine, but that's obviously the major kind of mechanic there. It does seem a little bit on the shorter side, but overall, I'm glad I replayed the game recently because I probably would have ranked this higher back when, just kind of going off of memory from back in the day. But having played it recently, it's not nearly as good as I remembered it being. So Forsaken Fortress, I'm probably going to put at a D. So it's just a complete pace killer at the beginning of the game. You're off, you just got off the island, you're ready for an adventure after kind of the intro section of the game, and then they take your sword away and you're doing this stealth. And then when you return later in the game, it's not really a dungeon. And keep in mind here, I'm not really including bosses for this. I probably should have stated that at the beginning. I'm thinking more just kind of the dungeon itself, and maybe we'll do bosses later for a different tier list. But in terms of just the dungeon itself, it's like first half stealth mission, not exactly the most exciting thing. And then when you return later, you can just barrel through this thing super fast. You just have your fight with Phantom Ganon, and then you can just power right up to the boss at the end. So overall, I think it's not that great, and you're never really kind of looking forward to your trip there. So that's why I'm going to put it in the D tier. The Earth Temple, I am going to also put in a C tier. I'd probably put it above Tower of the Gods. The problem with this dungeon, again, this is the one I used to like a lot more back in the day, and again, having recently played it, I think it totally changed my perspective. And I had played a lot of other Zelda games before kind of coming back to Wind Waker. The Earth Temple, the command melody just absolutely murders the pace in this. And even the HD version, where they have kind of cut out the cinematic where you have to watch Link replay the command melody, that did help 100%. But even in the HD version, it really kind of makes this dungeon more of a slog than it needed to be. So yeah, again, Earth Temple, not exactly as great as I remember. I mean, the mirror puzzles are still fun, so it's not bad, not, terrible or anything, just not as amazing as I once remembered. So I think it sits comfortably in the C tier. Wind Temple, which is one that I wasn't as crazy about when I was younger, I think is pretty good. I'm going to give it an A. I think, yes, you have to also use the command melody to control Makar in this dungeon, but it's not nearly as back and forth as you have to do with Medley in the Earth Temple. So I think that the way that they handled it was much, much better in the Wind Temple. The Wizrobes can definitely be annoying, but I actually find it really fun. You can use the bow to snipe the Wizrobes from pretty far away. I think the hook shot is, one of the more fun items to use, and I like Makar being used to kind of plant a lot of those trees for you to use the hook shot on. Overall, it's kind of the most complex dungeon that they have in the game, and I think that definitely brings it up some points as well. So overall, I think the Wind Temple is definitely one of the strongest in the game, if not the strongest, because we do have one more to take a look at. But yeah, overall, really, really like the Wind Temple upon playing it on my most recent playthrough. So again, probably the HD remake helps with not having to sit through the full command melody like you used to. And just it felt like, you didn't always know where to go. It was not as linear, although still somewhat linear. But yeah, overall, one of the more solid dungeons. Finally, we have Ganon's Tower, which I'm going to place at a B as well. I think Ganon's Tower in this game, is it as good as maybe Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess? Probably not. You have the boss rush mode, which I think is fine and is definitely cool when you have the Master Sword. So you'll get through a lot of these bosses, especially the early ones, a lot faster. Then you have kind of that section with a boomerang puzzle, which is, it's fine once you know what to do. I do like the puzzle with Ganon's, Phantom Ganon and the sword having to point in the direction to go. This used to stump me big time when I was a kid. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So overall, I think it's fine. And this is not counting bosses. This would probably be much higher if we were including bosses in it. But just on its own, it's not amazing, but I don't think it's bad either. It's definitely a little bit on the shorter side, but overall, I think it's fine. So that is pretty much everything. I know it's super quick for Wind Waker. There's only really like 7 dungeons, and even then, it's really only like 5 real dungeons. But I think this kind of really encapsulates how I feel about the dungeons in Wind Waker, as in there's nothing that actually hits the S tier. There's nothing that really hits the F tier either. It's hard for me to think of any Zelda dungeon that I would consider an F, but yeah, Wind Waker, it's like there's nothing horrible, but there's nothing amazing either. But definitely the Wind Temple would be that one standout. But yeah, this is where I stand with the Wind Waker dungeons. Make sure to let me know what you guys think. about the Wind Waker dungeons. What are your favorites? What are your least favorites? How would you rank them? Definitely let me know in the comments below if you enjoy this content. I'll be doing a lot more tier lists to kind of help with the in-between with a lot of these videos. If you're a Zelda fan, definitely check out my Phantom Hourglass review. That's a nice long form video essay, which is, you know, the namesake of this channel. But I'll be doing a ton more tier lists to kind of help, like I said, fill the gaps in the in-between and give my thoughts on Zelda and other games that I'm really passionate about in kind of a more free-form, unscripted way. So that'll be a good way to mix things up. But definitely let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.